What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Primetime Sports Podcast, hosted by Joey May. So today I'm back in the WZBC AM Sports Studio. My first time being back here since I graduated in May. So I do play in the Yawkey Baseball League now, and I do play for the Brighton Braves, a team that has its home field at Rogers Park, right on Lake Street, right near BC. So I have a game there tonight at 7:30. So I figured coming to campus early, walking around BC, taking in all the sights, whether it's walking through the quad, seeing the football stadium, walking by the gym, going through the library, seeing, gassing, just walking on campus, getting a feel for it again. I figured, why not? And here I am back in the studio for the first time since I graduated. So just about 2 months since the last time I was back here in the studio, since my last episode. So it's great to be back. Just to be back in here is just a pleasure. I always enjoy doing this. And for everybody that's ever listened along the way, whether it's been on Spotify, whether it's one episode, 100 episodes, or all 180 that I've done, thank you so much for always listening. You know, I do this because I love talking sports, and I appreciate everybody listening every step of the way. So thank you. So today, this wasn't really planned too much. I just figured, why not come to campus early, just get a nice feel for it, and just walk around again like the good old days. So this isn't really too planned. I just have a couple notes on the Red Sox I'll talk about. This probably won't be a long episode, maybe 20 minutes or so. I do have the game at 7:30, so I have to go get something to eat beforehand and then, get ready to go. So I'm going to start off talking about the Red Sox and how the season has gone. If you look at the Red Sox season, it's a streak. A streak of good games and a streak of bad games. That's how the Red Sox season's been. Patterns. 5 wins in a row, 5 losses in a row. That's how it's gone the entire season. So I'm going to talk about their current hot streak going into the All-Star break. I'll look at their first half, break down all the good and the bad, and then I'll talk about what I see for the rest of the season and the future of the Boston Red Sox at the end. And meaning the future of the near future, so this season and maybe next year as well. Since they do have some pieces they could trade at the trade deadline if they want to move on from guys that have maybe a year left on their contract. For example, Justin Turner, the Red Sox could trade. He does, I believe, a player option for next year. The Red Sox could trade not bring him back next year if he were to opt into his player option. The Red Sox, who knows, could trade Alex Verdugo, which I don't want them to do, but he does have 1 year left after this year. There's a chance I could move on from a guy like that. So I'm going to talk about what I see for the Red Sox by the end of this season, and we'll start off with the good and the bad. So let's start talking about the Red Sox in the bad. At one point in the season, the Red Sox were 15 games behind Tampa Bay on June 30th. So just about 2 weeks ago, the Red Sox were 15 games behind the Rays. And where do the Red Sox stand now? 9 games behind Tampa Bay for the first time since May 27th. The first time the Red Sox have been within 9 games of first place in the division since May 27th. And I'm not saying that like it's a great thing. I'm not saying, it's great that we're 9 games out. But considering how tough this division is for the Red Sox, you'll take 9 games out and just say, what can you do at the end of the day? The division's really competitive. Just have a spot in a chance for a wild card. That's all you really want at the end of the day. You knew you probably weren't going to win this division. So being in this position right now, you'll take as a Red Sox fan. But first time within 9 games of Tampa Bay since May 27th. And there's 2 reasons why that gap between the Red Sox and Tampa Bay has closed. Tampa Bay's losing streak has helped. And then the Red Sox win streak. So there's 2 reasons, as I said. Tampa Bay's losing streak, which Tampa Bay went on a very, very cold streak. And the Red Sox went on a hot streak. The Red Sox have won 5 games in a row in 8 of the last 9. And Tampa Bay, going into the All-Star break, went in as one of the worst teams in the last week heading into the All-Star break. Tampa Bay is 3-7 in their last 10 games. 3-7, and at one point, lost 7 games in a row. 7 games in a row they lost at one point. They won their last game before the All-Star break against Atlanta. But they took 1 of 3 against Seattle, 0 of 3 against Philadelphia, and then 1 of 3 against Atlanta. So they went into the All-Star break as one of the coldest teams in baseball. And partly it's because their offense cooled off. They lost 3-1 to the Phillies, 8-4, 3-1 to the Phillies, and then 2-1 to the Braves, 6-1 to the Braves, and then 10-4. The offense really cooled off. This is still a good team at Tampa Bay. I'm not making it seem like the Red Sox are the better team, but the Rays getting cold did help the Red Sox even that gap a little bit. Then you look at the Red Sox winning 5 games in a row and winning 8 of the last 9. Pretty impressive. And if you look at the teams they were doing against, some pretty good teams. And I know Oakland's not a good team, so taking 3 of 3 against Oakland isn't that crazy and isn't that impressive. But the teams they did beat right before Oakland, it's still pretty impressive. Taking 3 of 3 against Toronto and then taking 2 of 3 against Texas. And Texas, I think, is the best team in the American League. So taking 2 of 3 against Texas, you'll take any day as a Red Sox fan. I felt pretty good going into that series against Toronto, and I felt pretty good going into that series against Texas. And taking 3 of 3 against Oakland, that's huge. And so, if you look at the Red Sox season, as I said, it's streaks here and there of good and bad. They've had 3 long win streaks on the year. 8 games, 6 games, and now 5 games. Losing streaks. They've had a 5-game losing streak, a 4-game losing streak, and a 4-game losing streak on the year. So 3 good winning streaks, 3 bad losing streaks. And they've stayed in the basement in the AL East, dead last in the division since May 30th. But right now, they're just 1 game behind the 4th place New York Yankees. 1 game behind. And if you look at what the Red Sox have done this year in the division, they've done a lot better this year than in years past. They were 7-0 in the first half of the season against Toronto, 5-1 against the Yankees, 3-3 against Baltimore, a good team in Baltimore that's in the race right now for the AL East. They could legitimately win the AL East. Baltimore could win the AL East right now. They're only 2 games behind Tampa Bay. I think Baltimore has all the momentum in the world right now. Would not be surprised if they're even with Tampa Bay, if they're even with Tampa Bay by the end of the season. If it's pretty close going into the last week or 2 of the season. So, if you look at it, you have 3-3 against Baltimore, so a positive record or a 500 record against 3 or 4 teams in the division, and then Tampa Bay, the Red Sox are 1-7 against. Tampa Bay 1-7 against, you're not happy with, obviously, as a Red Sox fan, but at the end of the day, being 15-4 against the AL East, not named Tampa Bay, is a win at the end of the day. 15-4 against the AL East, not named Tampa Bay. If you look at the Red Sox were last year, 26-50 in the AL East last year. 26-50. And shout out to my brother Tony for listening, much appreciated. But the Red Sox are 26-50 versus the AL East last year. And now what are they? 16-11. 16-11 and 15-4 against teams not named the Rays. So that's impressive on its own. And now I'm going to look at some low points in the Red Sox season. I already talked about some of those cold streaks, and now I'm going to dive into some individual series that hurt the Red Sox overall in the first half of the season. Being swept by Pittsburgh at home in a 3-game series early in the season, that was tough. Being swept by St. Louis at home at Fenway Park in a 3-game series was tough. And then losing 2 of 3 a few weeks ago, or about 3 weeks ago now, against the Colorado Rockies at Fenway Park. All of those games were at home. 3 games against Pittsburgh, 3 games against St. Louis, 3 games against Colorado, and the Red Sox went 1-8 in those 9 games. And all of those games were at home at Fenway Park. And that's the reason the Red Sox have consistently stayed and hovered around 500 on the year. Because of all those bad streaks and good streaks. So what have been the biggest turnarounds for the Red Sox? What is turning everything around? What are the biggest pieces of momentum so far for the Sox going into the All-Star break or going past the All-Star break now into the second half of the season? Well, Brayan Bello's excellence on the mound, that's one. 6-5 with a 3.04 ERA and 14 starts, a 1.118 whip, so 1.118 walks and hits allowed per inning pitched, and 70 strikeouts in 80 innings so far in the year. Bello has given up 3 earned runs or less in 13 of 14 starts so far on the year. If you take away his first start of the year, which he was started off on a bad note, giving up 5 earned runs in his first start, if you take that start away, 13 starts, besides that first one of the year, in those 13 starts, a 6-4 record, 6 wins, 4 losses, with a 2.56 ERA, 65 strikeouts to 21 walks, and 77 in the third innings pitched. That's pretty impressive. He's looked like a young Pedro for this Red Sox team. He looks like the ace for years to come. So that's one positive development for the Sox so far in the season. What's another one? Jarren Duran. Jarren Duran's electric ability on the base path, from home to first, and then first to second, is unreal. And it's stealing bases, whether it's a single, a double, whatever it may be, stealing second, stealing third. His ability to get from home to first has not only given him chances at infield singles, but has also given him chances at doubles just on bloopers into center field. His ability on the base paths have been unreal this year. Unreal. And his development at the plate and in center field, or left field, he's played both, is impressive. And the Sox finally have a leadoff hitter. Their first since Mookie Betts left. Their first one they could actually rely on. And I'm confident saying that with Jarren Duran. I was a fan of Jarren Duran over the past few years, through the good and the bad, and I've stayed with them through the good and the bad. And I said right before the season began on my podcast, whether it's my radio show or my podcast, I think in both I mentioned him. I said I haven't lost hope with him, and I think he can break out and still be a good player for this Red Sox team. And look at what he's done. On Saturday, was 3 for 5 with 3 runs scored, a double, a home run, 3 runs batted in, and a stolen base. He turns singles into doubles consistently. turns singles into two bases just by getting to first and staying at second base with lightning speed. Lightning speed. So far on the year, 57 games, Duran's hitting .315 in 57 games as a starter with 14 stolen bases and an .888 OPS. With runners in scoring position, he's hitting .388 with a 1041 OPS, 29 runs batted in, and a 174 OPS plus. If you look at his last 17 games, he made 12 starts with 2 home runs, 9 runs batted in, 9 doubles, a triple, 7 stolen bases, a .421 batting average, a .754 slugging percentage, and an 1185 OPS. And he did go on a cold stretch at one point. His batting average fell to .274 on June 7th. But since that day, since June 7th and on, he's played in 24 games, making 16 starts. And in those 24 games, he's hitting .417 as a batting average with a .708 slugging percentage, an 1148 OPS, 2 home runs, 11 runs batted in, 11 doubles, 2 triples, 2 home runs, and 9 stolen bases. So now you look at the whole season as a whole. Overall, he's hitting .320 with a .519 slugging percentage, an .886 OPS, 5 home runs, 33 runs batted in, 27 doubles, which is actually tied for third most in the major leagues, and he's played in 15 less games and has 91 less at-bats than any of the 2 guys that are ahead of him, and even the third guy that's tied with him. So any of those 3 guys that are either tied with him or ahead of him have had at least 15 more games played and 91 more at-bats than him. And he's still tied for the third most doubles in baseball. And that's because of his speed, which I've mentioned now multiple times. He also has 2 triples on the year and 17 stolen bases in 18 attempts. If you look at his OPS and slugging percentage in the game of baseball, he has the 17th best OPS in baseball and the 17th best slugging percentage in the MLB among players with 200-plus plate appearances. If you look at the same benchmark right there, 200-plus plate appearances, he has the 5th best batting average in baseball at .318. 5th best in the game of baseball at a .318 batting average with players among players with 200-plus plate appearances. So that's obviously on a positive note. Credit to Jarren Duran. With all the criticism and everything he's gone through over the last year, credit to him. He deserves success more than anybody on this Red Sox team. Then you get James Paxton. He's back to a top-of-the-rotation piece like he was back in his Seattle Mariners days. The 34-year-old owns a 5-1 record on the year with a 2.73 ERA in 10 starts with 64 strikeouts in 56 innings and a .982 whip. He's given up 2 earned runs or less in 8 of 10 starts on the year and 3 earned runs or less in 9 of 10 starts this year. So he just had 1 bad start like Brayan Bello. In Paxton's last 7 starts, he has a 1.93 ERA with a 185 opponent batting average against him, 45 strikeouts to 8 walks, with 9 earned runs in 42 innings pitched. That's impressive. Another impressive piece for the Sox, Justin Turner. Turning back time at the dish. He was hitting just .256 on June 8th, right? .256 on June 8th. Since that day, he's played in 27 games with 6 home runs in that 27-game stretch, 26 RBIs, a .359 batting average, a .594 slugging percentage, and a .1010 OPS with 7 doubles and 2 stolen bases. So now he's up to .288 on the year for batting average due to that 27-game stretch there, with 13 total home runs, 52 runs batted in, and an .824 OPS. He's been very impressive. Another very good piece of the Sox, and another offseason piece the Red Sox got, Masataka Yoshida. Yoshida has a .316 batting average on the year, with 10 home runs, 44 runs batted in, and an .874 OPS. With 7 multi-hit games in a row, hitting .517 over the last 7 games, so those 7 multi-hit games in a row, he's hit .517 over that 7-game stretch, with 2 home runs, 5 runs batted in, a .793 slugging percentage, a .1326 OPS, and 1 strikeout to no walks. So there's 1 strikeout over the last 7 games. He's seeing the ball very well. He's seeing a pitch on the strike zone that he likes, and he's swinging because he's walked no times, and he struck out only once. So 2 more pieces that I want to talk about that have been very good developments for the Sox so far going into the All-Star break and now through the All-Star break into the second half of the season. And that's Nick Pivetta. Nick Pivetta's growth in the bullpen. In the bullpen, he's been out of the bullpen now 14 appearances. He has a 2.79 ERA in those 14 games, with 39 strikeouts to 12 walks and 9 earned runs in 29 innings pitched, with a 2-2 record and 2 holds, and also holding batters to a 146 opponent batting average against him. He had a 5.76 ERA as a starter, then gets moved to the bullpen, and now has lowered his ERA to 4.83 on the year and has flourished out of the bullpen for the Sox. He's part of the reason that the Red Sox right now are 5 games over 500, 48-43. He's been great out of the bullpen. When the Red Sox have to start an opener because they don't really have enough guys healthy in the rotation, considering they really have Brayan Bello, James Paxton, and Cutter Crawford healthy, they need somebody to pitch in middle relief. Because whoever they have as the opener, whether it's Bernardino or some other guys that have had be the opener, you need a guy that's going to go innings 3 through 6, 3 through 7 maybe. And Nick Pivetta has done his job out of the bullpen. And one last piece I want to mention, Cutter Crawford. He's been stepping up huge for the Red Sox in the rotation. Last 4 starts for Crawford, a 2-1 record with a 3.92 ERA and 17 strikeouts to 4 walks and 20 2/3 innings pitched, which is huge. He's looked unreal for this Red Sox team, stepping up at the right time when they need somebody to take over and be in that rotation since everybody's been hurt. Tanner Houck's hurt, Chris Sale's hurt, Corey Kluber didn't work out, Garrett Whitlock's hurt. With Whitlock, Sale, and Houck hurt, and Kluber not working out, which he's been on the injured list as well, but he's really, been a field project for the Sox so far. With Sale, Houck, and Whitlock hurt, the Red Sox needed somebody to step up, and that's Cutter Crawford. So what lies ahead for the Red Sox? And this will be my closing. I probably have a couple minutes left here. Probably about 5 minutes to go before I got to go. So what lies ahead for this Red Sox team? The trade deadline's looming. August 1st is coming up. What are the Red Sox going to do? Are they going to move James Paxton? Are they going to move Justin Turner? Are they going to move Adam Duvall, Kenley Jansen, or Chris Martin? What are the Red Sox going to do? For one thing, I think Adam Duvall should be gone. Trade him for whatever current piece you can get. If you can get a fifth inning guy, a middle relief guy that's on an expiring contract, or even a backup bench piece, why not? Why not trade him? In my eyes, he's been a field project in center field besides that first week of the season. Then obviously, unfortunately, gets hurt. Obviously not his fault, but he really didn't come back as the same player once he was injured. So I think Adam Duvall would be a good piece to trade. Jarren Duran deserves to be the everyday center fielder. He should be in center field every single day. Pencil him in as a leadoff hitter in center field every single day. I know Cora loves doing the righty versus lefty and the lefty on lefty wants to sit Jarren Duran versus lefties. I know the analytics say you bench a guy like that when he's facing lefties, but I think Jarren Duran has earned the right to be the everyday center fielder. And most starters in the game of baseball are righties. So Duran's going to get a lot more opportunities in center field than Adam Duvall's going to. But as for the rest of the guys I listed, I would keep them as of now. Why not try to make the playoffs and make a run? You're 2 games out of the wild card right now. Why not try to make a run? You're right in the thick of things right now. Why not try to make a run? And with key injuries that the Sox have had on the year, that I've already mentioned a few of them, some of those guys are going to be coming back soon. Chris Sale, Trevor Story, John Schreiber, Garrett Whitlock, Tanner Houck, those guys will be back at some point this season. And I'm going to give you a quick update of all of those players, and I'm going to give you a quick rundown. Here we go. Chris Sale. He's back to throwing after a shoulder injury, can return at the earliest August 1st. So right at the trade deadline is the earliest he can return. And he's already back to throwing, and the MRI looked good. So he should be back at some point in the next month, let's say. Trevor Story has been throwing long distance as of late. Obviously had that tough elbow injury and the wrist injury over the last year. But he hopes to be back by mid-August and hopes to make a minor league assignment soon after the All-Star break. So he should be returning within a month. John Schreiber. He's been pitching for AAA Worcester and should be back in the Sox bullpen soon. He's looked pretty good there. Garrett Whitlock has an elbow injury. Obviously another blow to the rotation. Should be back at some point since MRIs have said it's just tightness with his elbow. So that's good news. Tanner Houck took a line drive off the face about a month ago. Suffered a facial fracture, even got surgery on it, but should be back at some point. Hopes to throw a bullpen session on July 25th, so just about 2 weeks away. So that means the Red Sox could have 3 guys added to their rotation in the next 2 to 3 weeks. A good bullpen middle relief guy in John Schreiber, and then a starting shortstop in Trevor Story. Added to their lineup and rotation, whether it's a bullpen or starting rotation, all those guys I named, all of those guys should be back within the next 3 to 4 weeks. And who knows, maybe things go south for the Red Sox and they lose a lot of games before the trade deadline. Maybe they do blow things up. I think at the end of the day, some teams are in the middle right now, just like the Angels and Shohei Ohtani. The Angels, this is the worst position they want to be in. 5 games out of the playoffs and be under 500 by 5 games. This is the worst position for the Angels to be in. Right now, the Angels stand at 45-46, so a game under 500. And right now, in the wild card, are 5 games back of the Toronto Blue Jays to the last spot in the AL wild card. So 1 game under 500, 45-46, and went into the All-Star break losing 5 games in a row and are 1-9 in the last 10 games played. So just being 1 game under 500 and having that really bad cold stretch, this isn't where the Angels want to be at. They'd rather either be 10 games under 500 so they know, okay, we're going to go and try to negotiate a contract with Shohei Ohtani. If things don't work out, we'll trade him at the trade deadline. Or they'd rather be in the thick of things and be in the first or second wild card spot at this point right now, knowing, okay, let's go all in and try to make things work for Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. Obviously, the Angels have had injuries. Anthony Rendon and Mike Trout both getting hurt within a 24-hour window was catastrophic to this season. Catastrophic. And Mike Trout's going to be out around 6 to 8 weeks. That's awful for this Angels team, considering they really only have Shohei Ohtani on a guaranteed contract just for the remainder of this season. And who knows what the future holds. So some teams are like the Red Sox, they're in the middle ground right now. What do you want to do? If I'm the Red Sox, I would rather go all in and try to make a run in the postseason. Is this Red Sox team a World Series favorite? No. But at the end of the day, there have been teams that have made runs in the postseason that were not World Series favorites that have made runs and got hot at the right time. For one example, the Philadelphia Phillies last year. At this point in the season, nobody saw them as a World Series contender. They got hot in the second half of the season and made a run in the postseason all the way to the World Series. The Washington Nationals in 2019 got hot, middle to the late part of the season, and won the World Series. The Atlanta Braves of 2021. Nobody saw them at the midway point in the season as a World Series favorite. Maybe as a team that could definitely make a little bit of noise, but no one saw them as a World Series favorite. What did they do in 2021? Won the World Series. So it's possible. It's possible. The Red Sox could make a run. And that's why I'd like to see them go a little bit all in. I know a lot of people would rather just see them fold up and lose and just try to get future assets. But at the end of the day, if you're this close to the playoffs, why not make a run? As for the Angels, I think if I'm the Angels GM right now, I'm offering Shohei Ohtani a 10-year, $600 million contract, whatever it may be. Since you're getting a superstar as a hitter and a superstar as a pitcher, give him a $600 million offer for how many years, whatever he wants. Even make it $650 if you want to go overboard, and just to make sure you can try to get him. And if he says no to like $650 million, even $700 million, let's say, which it sounds crazy, and it's going to break the all-time American sports record in guaranteed money. It's going to break that, shatter it easily. I know it sounds crazy hearing $600 million, but that's ultimately what Shohei is probably going to be worth when he's on the free agent, open market. So if Shohei does decline a $600, $700 million offer somewhere between there, even if it's, let's say it's $550 to $650, if he declines an offer like that, then okay, he probably doesn't want to come back. So I would negotiate a contract with Shohei Ohtani right now, and if he doesn't take a $600 million offer, and if he's not interested at all, that means he doesn't want to come back. And if the Angels continue to lose games and things don't go right for them by August 1st, I would trade him at the trade deadline and get back future pieces, since you're going to get back a good amount to keep building that Los Angeles Angels farm system. A farm system that's done pretty good in the draft over the last 2 or 3 years. So let's talk about the Sox really quick, which I was just talking about them in what they're going to do at the trade deadline. As of now, I'm trading Adam Duvall and Paxton, Turner, Martin, Jansen. All of them are staying. Alex Verdugo, I would give a contract extension to. He's contract extension eligible right now, has 1 year left on his deal. I would give him an extension. He's the heart and soul of your team. I know he's gone through some bumps and bruises along the way of lack of hustle and having a couple cold stretches, but he's the heart and soul of the team in my eyes. He brings the energy every single night. So I would give Alex Verdugo an extension. I think he's rightfully earned it. So this brings into question the future of Chaim Bloom and Alex Cora, which all season long, whether Red Sox are going through good stretches or bad stretches, everybody's always talked about what does the future hold for Alex Cora and Chaim Bloom. As of now, I think they're both safe at the end of this year. Whether or not that's the right decision, who knows? I mean, it's going to depend on how the Red Sox do the rest of this season. But the Red Sox don't have as talented of a roster as those American League East teams do. Those AL East teams have better rosters for the most part, considering the Red Sox had a lot of key pieces hurt. A lot of those AL East rosters are better than this Red Sox team. So Alex Cora hasn't really worked with the best roster. But with that being said, things are starting to come together for Bloom as of late, and at the right time, honestly. I've been critical of him, and rightfully so sometimes, but some of his moves are starting to fall in place, and are starting to help the Red Sox win some ball games. For example, Chris Martin. He's been unreal out of the bullpen for the Red Sox. a piece the Red Sox just got this offseason. Kenley Jansen has been pretty good for the Red Sox overall. He has had some bad stretches like that series against St. Louis where he blew 2 games in a row, but he's been pretty good overall. A guy the Red Sox got this past offseason. It was the only Red Sox All-Star this year. Cutter Crawford, a young piece of this Red Sox team that has shined over the last 3 to 4 games that he's been in as a pitcher on the mound. Nick Pivetta, since he's made the move to the bullpen, has looked pretty good. Josh Winkowski out of the bullpen, overall has been pretty good this year. Justin Turner has turned back time to plate and looks like a different hitter than he was last year with the LA Dodgers. James Paxton has looked like the James Paxton of old. Paxton and Turner, 2 guys the Red Sox just got and Chaim Bloom signed this past offseason. So Martin, Jansen, Turner, Paxton, and then Masataka Yoshida. Those are 5 pieces the Red Sox got this past offseason that are helping the Red Sox win ball games right now, that are key pieces to this team. Another player that this wasn't a guy that he brought in, Bloom, but as a guy that he believed in enough to call him back up and give him another opportunity, Jarren Duran. And he's looked great. Through the hot and cold over the last 3 years, this is his 3rd season now in the major leagues, the Red Sox have believed in him enough to give him another opportunity. And I know Chaim Bloom has had some misses along the way. Kike Hernandez, for the most part, besides one postseason run in 2021, was a miss. I think he could be a guy that's DFA'd at some point. Corey Kluber, a miss. Do I blame Bloom for going after Kluber, though? No. I mean, at the end of the day, you got a bargain contract with Paxton. You got a bargain contract with Kluber, even though it didn't work out. And you got a bargain contract with Michael Walker last year, and that worked out. So he's given out some bargain contracts to some starting pitchers that were on the downtrend to most teams' eyes, and it worked out. So I don't blame him too much for the Kluber situation. Obviously, you wish you had a better starting pitching, but rotation, but there's a lot of injuries in there, and that's why Kluber got probably more opportunities than he deserved. Obviously, Jeter Downs was a big miss of that Mookie Betts trade. That was obviously a fail and a miss by Chaim Bloom. Franchi Cordero, trading Andrew Benintendi for him and getting Cordero back, that was a miss. But if I remember right, Josh Winkowski was part of that deal as well. So even though it didn't really work out, the Benintendi deal, getting back, Franchi Cordero, who is the main piece of that deal, you get Winkowski back, who's been pretty good in the bullpen for the Sox as of late. One ultimate miss, though, that I really can't, say Bloom can get away with and not give him, any bit of, criticism for, is letting Xander Bogaerts, J.D. Martinez, and Nate Eovaldi all leave within the past year, all in free agency and get nothing back in return. That's one thing right there that I can't let him get away with. Letting Bogaerts, Martinez, and Eovaldi all leave for free with no return. Martinez just hit cleanup in the All-Star game last night for the NL. Nate Eovaldi has been unreal, one of the best starters in the American League and one of the best players on the mound in the game of baseball this year. He's looked great for Texas. And then Bogaerts hasn't really had that hot of a year for San Diego, but considering you let him leave for free, you can't do that at the end of the day. So even though things haven't gone all right for Bloom, not everything has gone wrong at the same time, though. And he has built this farm system, I think, enough to see some positive stretches and some positive things coming through. Tristan Casas came up, struggled last year, even struggled for a good amount of this year. He's looked good and better over the last month and a half. Defensively, he has to learn a little more, but he's been getting better at the plate. Has been getting better contact and putting the bat to the ball a lot better than he did 2 months ago. Marcelo Mayer, Nick York, a couple pieces that Chaim Bloom drafted will be up within the next couple of years. So we'll see what happens with Chaim Bloom and Alex Corbett. As of now, on July 12th here, while I'm sitting in the studio here on a Wednesday, evening when no one's probably thinking about what Chaim Bloom's future holds, especially on the All-Star break, since this is really one of the most boring weeks in the world of sports over the course of the 365-day year, considering it's the All-Star break for the MLB. There's no games going on. There's no NBA. I guess there's a summer league, but there's no NBA games. There's no NHL games. There's no NFL games. You got the summer league, and then now it's the All-Star break for baseball, so there's nothing going on. So no one's probably even wondering right now, what's going on with Bloom and Cora. But in my eyes, I think Bloom and Cora will be safe at the end of this year. Who's more on the hot seat? I don't know. I would have said Cora a month ago, considering he seemed like he wanted out a month ago when the Red Sox were going through a cold stretch. When he said, we're 40-40, yeah, what can you do? It seemed like he wanted out. But now I'd say I think he's buying in a little more. And maybe it's because the Red Sox are winning. Sometimes winning solves a lot of your problems. Sometimes it does. So we'll see what happens with this Red Sox team. But I'm looking forward to seeing, hopefully, the Red Sox continue this hot streak. And if you look at their future schedule over the next few weeks, They got Chicago for 3 games at Chicago, 3 games at Oakland. So 6 games where they should probably go 4-2 or 5-1 in that stretch. I'd take 4-2, but I'd love 5-1. And then you get the Mets for 3, Atlanta for 2, and then San Francisco for 3. The Mets have been struggling overall in the course of the season, but they're 6-4 in the last 10 games, and are now 42-48, 6 games out of 500, but have been making strides over the past week and a half. But you got 3 games against Chicago, who has been struggling on the year, 5 games under 500, 42-47. Then you got Oakland again for 3 games at Oakland, 25-67 on the year as Oakland, 4-6 in the last 10, who the Red Sox just swept. And then you got the Mets. So those are 9 games right there that if the Red Sox go 6-3 in that stretch, that's a huge win in my eyes. It definitely would help even their gap between themselves and the last wild card spot in the AL. So anyways, that will conclude this episode. Do have my game at 7:30. Going to go and try to get something to eat and get ready for that. But thank you guys so much for listening. Much appreciated. Psyched to be back in the studio. And hopefully I'll be able to do this again soon. As I said, I just came, on a limb. Didn't think much. Just said, why not go into the studio and see if anybody's in there? And if no one is, I'll come in and talk some sports like I did for 2 years here in the studio and enjoyed every second of it. So I'm happy to be back in here, and hopefully I'll be back in again soon. Luckily, being in Southie, it's not too far away from BC. So if I want to come back and talk sports in here, if no one's in here and I have the pleasure to do so and the opportunity to do so, why not? So I've enjoyed every second in here, and thank you guys for listening. Whether it's this episode or an episode along the way, it's much appreciated. So thank you guys for listening in. And one last thing I want to say is shout out to my family, all my friends. Shout out to the Keefe family. Shout out to the O'Malley family. Shout out to the Loftus family. Shout out to Auntie Lisa. Shout out to my siblings. Shout out to Tony for listening. Much appreciated. Shout out to my parents. And shout out to all my guests I've had along the way. And shout out to Dina, one last person I want to shout out. Dina from the Cape, much appreciated with all your support. Thank you for listening. And thank you for all your suggestions over the weekend. I was at the Falmouth Commodores game this past weekend since Mark Walsh got to see God Bless America in the 7th inning. Was talking to Dina and MJ a ton about my podcast, and they gave me a lot of great suggestions. So thank you guys for your support. It's much appreciated. So for everyone else listening here, thank you for listening every step of the way, as I've said now, probably 5 times. And hopefully I'll be back in the studio again soon. As I said, this wasn't even planned. It was just, why not go to the studio, see what's going on, and I had the opportunity to do so. So thank you guys. Much appreciated. Hope you guys have a good summer. Enjoy the rest of the way, and hopefully I'll be back in here again soon. Much appreciated. Have a good one. Have a good night, and thank you for listening again. Take it easy. Stay safe, and take care. Have a good one. Closing out one last time, Joey Malari in the WZBC AM Sports Studio.